The passage is Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 to 33. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went to them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they cried, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God."
So this is quite a well-known passage. And just a little background, the story of Jesus walking on the water, it's not just in one gospel, it's in three gospels. It's in Matthew 14, as we read, Mark 6, and John 6. And what had happened just before was Jesus had just fed the 5,000. So they'd seen this happen. And then he wanted some quiet, so he went away for a while, and they went out. He told them to go out on the boat, and he would follow them at some stage. But then suddenly a storm brewed up, as it often did, when the disciples were in the boat. High winds and heavy seas. And the disciples, it says, were terrified. And one verse says they shrieked and cried out with fear. And it was just before dawn, around about 4 o'clock, something like that, that they thought they saw a ghost on the water. And then they heard these words from Jesus. He immediately said to them, he didn't leave them in their fear. He immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." And those are the words, those are the words that I just want to focus on this morning. Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. And that's maybe something that the Lord's saying to each one of us today is take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. And the main part, which when we were listening to the Lord just beforehand, it's good that someone had a verse relating to this, and I thought that's always confirmation, so that's good. The main part, I feel, is the take courage bit. And it's the first part of this sentence as well. It says he doesn't say, first of all, don't be afraid. It says take courage. Take courage. Another word for it is take heart, be brave, be of good cheer. And in Hebrew, it means heroism, valor, might, bravery, resolution, tenacity, to be resolute in difficult circumstances. And we often think of courageous people of having no fear, but actually courage is not the absence of fear. Often those who are courageous, they feel the fear, but they do it anyway. They make that choice, or they've already in a way died, and they make that choice to do what is hard. Because they depend, as Christians, we're to depend and trust in Jesus and his promises for us. so we can manage and overcome our fear, and it doesn't paralyze us from taking any action. But also courage isn't the opposite of fear either. It's the practice of risk-taking, of trusting, risking to trust we have a good shepherd who is with us always, no matter what. And I always sort of picture it as, to me, like it's overcoming in a way. And if there's like a boulder in a valley that's blocking the whole valley, if we come under it, under the boulder, we'll get crushed. But we're supposed to come over it. And the only way we can come over a thing which is in the valley is if, as it were, we have the wings of eagles and it's in his strength. That's the only way we can overcome. It's to do it in his strength. And Isaiah 40 verse 31 says, those who trust in the Lord or hope in the Lord will find new strength. So it's actually exchanging our strength for his strength. And that's what we need. When we need courage, we need his strength. He says, take courage. It's a gift. It's something he gives to us. But we have a choice whether to take it or not. Also, the Holy Spirit, is in Isaiah 11 verse 2, it talks about the sevenfold gifts of the Spirit, and one of those characters of the Spirit is courage and might. And we also hear about in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, don't we? It says, God did not give you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. And when the Holy Spirit, maybe when you were filled with the Holy Spirit initially, and when you know God's presence in you, often there's that Holy Spirit boldness, isn't it? To stand up and declare God's goodness, to share our faith, we just know that God is on our side, that he won't leave us, and we feel strong because his Holy Spirit is there, it's in us, and he's actually speaking to our spirit and he's encouraging us. I remember when I was in hospital a couple of years ago, for about 6 weeks, but I did get low, and the times which were really good was when a nurse who was a Christian, she just walked with me, and she just gave me a word of encouragement about how God had brought her through. And to me, that's giving courage, because people can say, don't be afraid, but actually you need a reason why not to be afraid. But actually, when someone encourages you, gives you courage, that lifts our spirit, doesn't it? It connects with our spirit and lifts us up. It imparts divine courage to us. And I also remember the story of Gideon in Judges 6, the angel of the Lord came and said to Gideon, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. And Gideon was the least in his family. And his clan was the weakest in all Israel. In Israel was like against the Midianites, and they were all like hiding away. And he probably said, pardon me, who me? I'm a mighty warrior. And I don't know about you, sometimes remember in the church of old, like some people praying for me a few times, and they came up with this, they gave this word to me, and I thought, that's not me. I don't feel that way. But actually what it was imparting strength into my heart. And it's not how we see ourselves, it's how God sees us. That's what gives us courage. He says to us, isn't he? He says we're beautiful, we're cleansed, we're holy. But we don't feel that way, but that's how Jesus sees us. That's what God has done in us. So let him impart courage to us and take that gift of courage. And it's believing God's promises and knowing our identity and faith in him, that we are his sons, we are his daughters. And when Jesus was baptized and the Holy Spirit came on him and he says, you are my beloved son with whom I'm well pleased. And that was before he'd done anything. It was like he was just imparting that knowledge that he's accepted, but also who he was in God. He's obviously God as well, wasn't he? But he is God. And then the second part, so we've got take courage, and then the second part, it is I. And the Greek word for this is I am. And it's the same word as used in Exodus 3 verse 14, I am who I am. When God revealed himself to Moses, he said, I am who I am. And in a way, Jesus' words were echoing the self-revelation of Yahweh to Moses. He was anchoring the fearlessness of his disciples, that they should not be afraid, because he is I am as well. Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the bread of life, I am your healer, I am your strength, I am the door, I am the gate. He is the great I am. And I always think of, I do eat a sandwich, but I did share this a few weeks ago in the little church, and I ate too much of the sandwich. I couldn't carry on for a bit, so I'll only eat a little bit. But in the middle, you have the jam, okay, and then the bread. So I'm going to eat a little bit. But which is the bit which is tasty, which is the bit which is important? It's the bit in the middle of the sandwich. It's the jam. And the bit in the middle of this phrase, take courage, it is I, or I am, don't be afraid, it is I am. So the main part is because Jesus lives in us and he is with us. That's why we're not to be afraid. That's why we can take courage, because he lives in us, but also he promises to be with us. So we don't need to fear. And in Psalm 56, verses 3-4, it says, whenever I'm afraid, I put my trust in you, in God whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? And that second part seems the right way around, isn't it? In theory, we're supposed to put our trust in God first, and then we won't be afraid. But often we're afraid, and then we put our trust in God. But it is trusting in him, trusting who he says he is, and that gives us courage. That imparts courage to us as we step out in his word. And the water that threatened to be over their heads was under Jesus' feet. He is the great I am. He was the beginning and the end. So before anything happened, he was there at the beginning. So he is over the sea. He's supernatural, isn't he? He commands the sea. But as Peter found out, and often Peter gets criticized, but he was the one who actually took the step of faith, didn't he? And he was the one who took courage, and he said, well, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you. So he actually took that step of faith. He took God's courage. But as he went out, which is often what happens, he saw the wind and the waves and he got afraid, and he took his eyes off Jesus and he began to sink. But failure isn't, as a Christian, failure is part of living. We fall, but we get up again. We get up again. It says 7 times the righteous fall, but he gets up each time. So that the thing in Christian life is for each of us is whenever we feel we fall or we fail, is to get up again. That's all that the Lord calls us to do, get up again and let him lift us up. Just brought this picture, which, get it the right way up, yeah. So that's a picture of Jesus lifting Peter, I think, out of the water. But that's in a way what he does for each of us, isn't it? He when we're sinking, we just need to hold our hand out and let him grab it. He's the one who pulls us up. We're not the one who pulls him down. He's the one who pulls us out of the water. And I remember once when I was in Israel by the Sea of Galilee, I was just sitting there and I was just sitting there, and then some people were singing a song called Come Walk on the Water with Me. Come walk on the water with me, you will not fail. And in the distance, I heard someone call my name, Simon. And it sort of just fitted in with that song. And it was just, to me, it was like, that's what he wants us to do, isn't it? To walk on the water. You will not fail. Yes, we might fall, but we just get up again. And it is as Peter, because Peter did say the right thing. He said, Lord, if it's you. So it's important to know, Lord, the Lord is calling us into something. So if we're in his will, he's going to be there for us. So as we step out. And Canon Andrew White, he often says, don't take care, because I often use the phrase take care, but don't take care, take risks. And I don't know about yourself, but when I've taken risks in my life, actually I've found that the Lord's there. When I've taken risks believing it's him, I found that he is there, his promises are there and they're true. And it's just, you get his joy and you get his peace. But yeah, you find he uses you in ways you didn't think were possible. So just to end, and there is a book by John Ortberg called If You Want to Walk on the Water, You've Got to Get Out of the Boat. And it's true, isn't it? It is true. Sometimes we're too afraid to get out of the boat. Sometimes we're used to being in the boat, and it's choppy on the water. But actually, to take risks is often what the Lord tells us to do. Isaiah 41 verse 10 seems to sum up what with this verse also, what take courage it is I, don't be afraid. It says it's, Isaiah 41:10 says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed or paralyzed with fear, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, even if you fall. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And that's a favourite verse for many. I know it's a favourite verse for me. Joshua 1 verse 9 is also saying this as well. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And that's so important.